when I was younger, but I hear, well, I'm going to try to do that. Let's say if something needs to be done. And I have this saying, I've been doing this for years. I say, Yoda, okay. That means I need to do it or not do it.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. And on the show, we deliver ideas and insights from construction leaders all across the country every single week to help you lead more effectively. This episode is brought to you by our very own. That's right. We built it. We built it for you. Whether you're a commercial GC or you're a dealer or you're a distributor, if you have salespeople and you are not consistently with discipline forecasting the near term, you are flying blind. It's sales malpractice. So what do? Should you invest in a very expensive, hard to install CRM system? No, don't do that. Now you might want to do it later, but you can solve the problem today. And our promise to you is it's 30 minutes or less. Get your sales reps account and we can sit down, virtually and organize and value his pipeline and immediately solve that problem in 30 minutes or less. Once that is done, updating it month over month is generally 12 minutes or less. That's right, 12 minutes or less. So organize and value individual salespeople's sales pipeline, 30 minutes or less from the jump. That's our commitment on the simple sales pipeline. Check it out. Now, you, my friend, are in for a treat because you are going to get to listen to and learn from Mr. Barry Wurzel. He's a commercial builder. He's a general contractor and a problem solver. He's the president of Wurzel Builders based in Austin, Texas. Barry earned his undergraduate degree at St. Mary's College in California. Mascot is the Gales, G-A-E-L-S. Legend has it, at least according to the internet, which is never wrong, that in the 1920s, the famous sports writer Grantland Rice named St. Mary's the Gales because there were so many Irish guys in the squad. Well, guess what, Grantland? We got another Irish guy who's doing this pod right now. Anyway, I digress. Sorry. Mr. Barry Wurzel, you will enjoy this conversation. We talk about building, we talk about Nick Saban and trusting the process, and we talk about Yoda, and we talk about why we find things that work, and then we stop doing them, and how from a leadership perspective, you can lead in a way that reduces that possibility. We also talk about what a dynamics coach is and why he found this role after watching the show Billions and implemented it in his business. You're going to love this idea, even if you're not quite sure if you could pull it off. But I can guarantee you in the future, more and more businesses will have this role, and Barry is a leader in this way and many more. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation. Had a blast meeting with him in his office in Austin, Texas. Mr. Barry Wurzel, President, CEO of Wurzel Builders. As always, thank you for listening. So Mr. Barry Wurzel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to be here. We have so many things I am excited to ask you about, but let's take a quick step back. Let's go to the beginning. I want you to imagine you're 12 years old. You're in the 6th grade. Can you tell me and the audience where you were, what you were passionate about, and what you thought you'd be doing, if anything, in the year 2022?
Yeah. When I was at 12, I was very interested in building.
You were?
Yeah, I was. I played sports 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old when I was younger, local organized team sports. When I got to about 12, I just like to build. So I built a 3-story fort inside of my mom's house.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
3 stories?
Yes.
Was like OSHA involved? Were there safety protocols? Were there rails?
No, it was 3 stories. I did start with 1-story course and then built a ladder up and 3 floors. Yes, sir. Had rails on it. Yes.
Did you do it by yourself?
With a friend.
Okay.
Me and a friend. Sometimes I worked on it by myself, but yeah, my mom was real forgiving like that. She said, well, she didn't say much. She'd come out and look at it and say, hey, that's really nice. And we'd go up there and do our thing at 12 years old. And 13, 14 years old, I was building stuff in the garage. I built a first sailboat, put a sailboat together with an inflatable raft. I built a piece to figure out how to connect it to the raft, and I built a sail and all that stuff. And I had a sailboat that I used to take camping. My mom would take me camping, and I'd get out there in the lake and do that.
Where did this come from? Was there a model in your life, some role model where you said, oh, I'm going to do what that guy did? Or you were just like, yeah, it's mechanically intelligent. This made sense to you. You could do it.
It just made sense. I have one of my few talents. I can see things in 3 dimensions.
Okay.
Internally, like I can look at an engine block in a car, and I can see all the bolts, and I can see the oil in it, and I can see the lifters and all that stuff. I can see all that moving. So it helped me understand how to build things, put things together, because I can do it in my head, and then it makes it easy because I know 3 steps down what part I need for this thing, and I go figure it out. So I'm a builder, I guess, at heart, and that's how I'm wired. Love to do it.
That's a gift, because I was just telling somebody last week, when I was doing a lot in purchasing and looking at 2-dimensional drawings and doing takeoffs, I felt like I was getting close. I was developing the skill to kind of look at a 2-dimensional set of drawings and have it kind of stand up. Mm-hmm. It was hard work for me, but there are some people, and I'm sure you're one of those, it's easy. It just makes sense, And I think if you have that skill, all of a sudden, literally and figuratively, seeing around corners and being proactive, we're like, I know what's going to happen if we don't do this. This is the next shoe to drop. That is just an invaluable skill. So early on, you recognized you're good at building stuff with your hands, visualization. These are skills that you have.
Yes.
Got it. So was there a point in your life where you said, not only do I know this about me as an individual, but I also know there's a career out there where people do this and they have fun and I can use these skills full time. When did those connections really meet?
I was in junior college at Diablo Valley College in the Bay Area in California, and I started taking architecture classes because I thought I wanted to be an architect. Because when you're younger, I think that we all thought, I sure did, that, well, architect's the way you go build things. And really, they're different brains. I didn't realize that at the time until went on a field trip to a construction project a few miles from campus, and they were building a parking garage on the side of a mall. And that's when it just clicked. It should have clicked before that, but I'm looking at what these workers are doing. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I built already when I was 12 years old and a little bit older than that. And then I go to college and I'm seeing this, and I don't know why it just took me that long to make that connection. It's not architecture, it's construction. So that's when that light went on, that's the path to take. So absolutely. I got out of architecture and started pursuing the other.
Got it. It reminds me, I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but George Costanza always famously would say he wants to be an architect. And he's like, what do you design? He's like, well, parking garages. And they go, don't engineers do that? And he kind of looks around like, had me thinking of that as well. Yeah, I had the same thing. I was like, I think I want to be an architecture. And then I realized you needed to do quite a bit of math. And I was like, well, I was a Spanish major for a reason. But so tell me about this shift from California eastward, because you were part of the transplant from California to Texas and then Austin long before it was cool, or some Texans would say this is now a major problem here with lots of folks that are coming here. How was your transition? How did you migrate from the state of California down to Texas and ultimately settle here in Austin?
In '82, I took a job with Mervyn's and Target. I started as a draftsperson, and within about a year, I was a project manager for them. Okay. Junior project manager. I was still going to school at Diablo Valley College, scenario I told you about. So I was still in school for another year when I started to work at Mervyn's Target. And I started traveling after about a year. I had projects. I was managing projects. I had a number of projects on the West Coast. And then I started being assigned to projects in Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia. Okay. And I will tell you, like when my wife met me when I lived in California, she thought I was from here, even though I wasn't. I was retrospectively, I think I was just born in the wrong place. So when I got to Texas, I was working in Dallas and Houston, and I just remember thinking, these are my people. Yes, this is where I belong. Yeah. I dig the hot weather. I love the vibe of the South. And so it's where I fit. So
You rock the hat well.
oh, thank
as
you.
well. Yes.
Thank you. Thank
Fit
you.
right
Thank
in.
you. Thank you. When I told, so I wanted to come to school here because I had a bachelor degree from California, business degree really, and that I had gotten at night school, part time. And so I wanted to come to school here and go to Texas A&M because I wanted to get a degree in construction so I could help me make the transition from the owner side to the contractor side, and they're very different. And so when I talked to Robin about moving here, she absolutely said yes. And so she supported me leaving so I quit my job in California. We moved to Texas, went to school at A&M, spent a couple of years there getting my master's degree, and then I left and went to work for GC here. Okay. So I got the contractor side, and I'm now in the South, so I'm really loving life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm interested to learn what were some of the insights that you picked up quickly. So you launch Wurzel Builders, and then it seemed, at least from the resume, and you can correct that, is pretty quickly, you obviously had relationships with Target, but Target, CVS, Schwab, Starbucks, H-E-B, Walmart, these are some huge brands. What did you learn working with companies that size when sometimes I think there's this idea that, hey, for a startup, I need to work on small projects or with small companies. That doesn't appear to be the case with you. Maybe give me a little context about that.
Well, of course, I came from that world. After I got out of A&M, I went to work for a general contractor. Worked there about a year and a half. CF Jordan Commercial.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
Based out of El Paso. They had an office in Austin, and I got hired out of A&M to work there. And I'd been at CF Jordan about 6-9 months, and I stayed in touch with a lot of the folks that I was at Target and Mervyn's, and they started calling me because we stayed in touch and said, hey, now that you're working for GC, you want to do some remodel work for us. Okay. So I started doing work for Mervyn's when I was with CF Jordan doing that work. So there were smaller projects, but it was for the Mervyn's Target group. And it was Dayton Hudson back then. They were sister companies at that time. And so did that work for about 6 months, and then I knew I wanted to go out on my own. That was a longer-term plan. But my boss over there decided that he didn't want me doing this remodel work anymore because it just didn't fit their model, which it really didn't. They were doing larger industrial type projects. So I decided that it was time because he wasn't going to support it. We were making money, and I was doing well at it. So that's when I decided to leave them and go out on my own. Mervyn's was happy with it. They followed me, and so I started. My first projects were 4 remodeled projects for Mervyn stores in the first year, and then started looking at public work. Okay. So I started doing that work in about year 2. Worked pretty heavily in that 2-3 years just to get started because when you got to set up a name for yourself, no one knows who you are. You got to get credibility, all that stuff. So after 2-3 years into that, Best Buy called, Charles Schwab called, which were folks that called me were folks I used to work with at Target Mervyn's. Okay. So that circle of some friends, yes, because we worked together, but we'd worked together and they knew what I did. And so that's why they called me. And so that's how that circle of that what I call institutional work got started with the large big box and the large retail folks. So
got it. So you moved from California, you moved to Texas, you're in College Station, you get your master's, right? Robin's with you. What does Robin say when you say, I think it's time. I think we're ready. We can go out on my own.
Oh, 100% supported it.
Really?
Yep. This table here reminds me of the first table we had because she went and got me a table, got all the stuff, got my pickle jar, for the pens and all that kind of startup stuff. Set me up an office upstairs in our upstairs family room when we were living in Austin. And I had some, not much concern, but we talked about what happens, how are we going to be, what happens if we don't make it? And she said, well, you had a job when you found the one you got, so just go find another one. So I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
I got the support, wind at my back.
Yeah, I think for people that know they want to be entrepreneurs and for a while they suppress it, and I'm very passionate about it. Obviously, I'll often say is for a lot of us, for example, you get your master's at Texas A&M at one of the greatest construction management schools in the country, if not the best. There's only so far you can fall if this doesn't work out. And you are going to learn, inevitably, you're going to learn a lot of things about yourself and what you're good at, what you're not good at, if it fails. And obviously. It didn't, so I often I think for a lot of folks that go to good schools and they're smart and they're hardworking, the downside risk, unless you do crazy stuff with, take out a $10 million loan or something like that. I'm like, in this industry, I think you can get started easily. So I think that's a great example of that. You and I fell into fairly quickly a discussion about Mr. Nick Saban and the mantra I think that both of us say quite a bit. Something that I think with my team, this is something I say out loud to remind myself that I need to do a better job of really clarifying what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we can really work more effectively as a team. But it's this quote, know your role, do your job. How is that relevant here at Wurzel Builders?
I think it fits very well. Anybody you talk to here will tell you I like football analogies. There are a number of what I call two team sports. Football is, I think, one of the truest for my own personal reasons. So
you said two team sports?
Team sports. I said there's probably more than one true team sport in football, but football, I use a lot of football analogies because I think I relate to it. It's easy for me to use it as a euphemism. And so I do talk about that a lot. And Nick Saban and his systems and processes because you look back everywhere he's coached except in the pros, he wins. And why is that? He's got a system that works. And he teaches his players, do your job and follow the process. And so it's hard to put processes together. And it's a lot of work to define all the various roles because a construction firm, like any company, has its roles, like a football team. And so our job is to orchestrate the personalities, make sure the job roles are clear, and then coach them to do their job, give them the support and the tools to do that. And that way, if everyone does their job and we collaborate, we all succeed. And we do have some folks, that happens quite often, where somebody's worried about someone else's job. And my position is, look, worry about your job. One of the analogies that Coach Saban, I've heard him talk about, you take a look at the receiver and the quarterback's roles, and the receiver has one job: run that route and be where he's supposed to be when the ball gets there. Mm-hmm. That's it. Don't worry about what the linebacker's doing. Don't worry about what I'm doing as a quarterback. You be there and just know that ball will be there. And so the quarterback's job is to make sure that ball is there when it's supposed to be. And if they each do their job, success. And so that's a simple analogy, but I think each position, each role, each job, if you look at it that way, we'll have more success. Now, getting everyone to think that way and keep collaborating and honing their skill, if you will, for their job, that's where the real work is.
So how would you handle a situation where you have an employee working hard, means well, and will look out and say, Barry, I would love to just know my role and do my job. However, I'm working with colleague X, and they are not doing A, B, and C. And to avoid failure and limit the downside, negative results, I'm going to make sure we're not going to fail. I'm going above and beyond, and I'm going to do his job as well. How do you handle that? Because part of that story, you're like, those are the people I want. I want them to look around and cover up for other people's weaknesses. But there's that thin line between, right, not falling down on your job, because now we have two jobs that we're not doing. You're not doing yours, and they're not doing theirs. How do you handle that from a leadership perspective?
Well, each situation is a little bit different, but ultimately the person that's not doing their job needs to do the job. And so look at why are they not doing the job? Sometimes it's situational. Maybe they're having some family issues, or maybe having some health issues or whatever. So we try to look at that to see if that's the cause, and maybe they need some help. Maybe they need some time off to deal with those things. Sometimes it's something else. Attitudes changed. Maybe there's a personality issue between those two folks, and I need to figure out, and I help coach the leader of that team to help figure out what is really causing it, and so we can develop a way to change that behavior. And sometimes it's just coaching that they don't know what the role is, or they think they know what the role is and they're really not doing it. Sometimes that's not the job they want to be in. So I want to figure out why it's happening, design a recovery plan, if you will. But it doesn't always work. Sometimes you got to move them on. Sometimes it's a different position. But I don't like long-term. I like the passion for someone to make up for someone else's either weakness or not doing the job. That's what leaders do. But you need to also continue, or at the same time, solve why that is happening and then implement a plan to correct it.
Is that phrasing recovery plan? Is that normal vocabulary people use around here?
In construction, it is.
Okay.
You hear the term recovery schedule
Okay.
often.
Sure.
Well, if you're behind schedule.
Yeah.
So if you get behind schedule on a project, it may require you to work a weekend or two,
Sure.
or 3 or 4 to get caught up. And so you have a plan in place, and then you got to collaborate with the folks that have to do the work and plan the work and then work the plan. But you got to get their buy-in and that with it. It's similar with people. Identify what the problem is, what has to be changed to correct either the behavior, generally it's the behavior, and usually it works. It usually works because people oftentimes don't realize that they're doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. Well, and what strikes me there is I think once you label it as, hey, Barry, we need to put together a recovery plan for what happened. Sometimes we have something that happens. It wasn't great. We have a discussion about it. And I think it's possible for that person to leave that and be like, oh, that was a good conversation. Yeah, we'll think about that. As opposed to saying, this is an issue that we need to recover from. So I think even potentially just labeling it as such could really alert everyone to the seriousness of this and how much attention and energy it's going to require to get back. So just as you said that just really kind of triggered a reaction that really resonated with me there. One question I think a lot of teams struggle with, and I know we do on our team, is that we have high expectations. We have high standards. The people that are here on our team, because we've worked together, they understand what those are. But for someone new coming in from the outside, they often feel like this is kind of a code they need to crack. And I'm always trying to figure out, hey, how can we document it? How can we make it really clear from early on? We have high standards. Here's what they are. And how do we make it easy for you to understand that and start living up to them? But a lot of teams, I think, just kind of grow quickly and you kind of have this tribal knowledge that isn't documented. How do you guys overcome that? Because of the scale you guys are operating with, and obviously different business units and a lot of talented people, how do you make sure those expectations that they are high, how do you make sure those are clear?
Well, we have department manuals that describe the systems and processes,
Okay.
what forms we should use, and what the best practices are for each of the jobs. But recently, what we have done is we organize our organizational chart, the job description, then we have a review coaching form. And so they're all in alignment.
Okay.
So we've got an org chart that, let's say it's for a project manager. Okay. And then we have a job description that describes what the project manager role is. And that's one of the things that we were talking earlier about a dynamics coach. Had been working closely with our HR department. And so she helped cultivate the verbiage on the job description. So we had all of the specific tasks and metrics involved in what they're supposed to be doing to be successful. It's really more of a detailed outline of what they're supposed to be doing, not just do these 4 things.
Yep.
Very detailed on what their core tasks and goals are. And then we've got a coaching form. We do coachings and we do reviews once a year. We do coachings every 6 months. Well, it's review, and then in the middle 6 months is a coaching, and then a review, and then 6 months later coaching, and so forth. And the reason we do coaching is a time we talk about expectation, job performance, questions, how can we help each other be better, those sorts of things, without this expectation of talking about money. Money we talk about sometimes at the coaching point, but when you do the review, the money is the main focus.
And you're talking about, I'm assuming, compensation for this individual versus profitable company or project, correct?
Yes, compensation for the person.
Yep.
So when we do the review, money's part of the conversation. It's known to be part of the conversation. When we do coachings, it's strictly, sometimes money conversation is involved, but it's about the job, how they're doing.
Okay.
What we think they need help in. They'll give us feedback, what they think we need to do differently. Maybe they see something that needs to be addressed. Even though we talk about it often throughout the year, it's a formal time we come together and talk. So in short, we have the org chart, we have the job description, and the coaching form all in alignment so that we teach things like best practices. Project managers' best practices are different than the superintendent's best practices.
Yep.
Accounting's best practices are different than a project engineer. So each of those job descriptions, coaching forms, performance review forms are detailed specifically for each jobs. And so to answer the question, I think I'm answering the question is we then can coach on all the specific things that we think are important for them to be successful. And it provides intentional focus on the conversation. We score it. We keep track of the metrics so we can help see performance over time. And we can see how we see improvement or maybe non-improvement, similar to how a football team tracks the stats for a quarterback, for example. So that's how we do it. So it helps them connect the dots very clearly.
So tell me about the dynamics coach. I haven't heard that before. What's the role? Where'd you get that idea?
Honestly, there's a show out there called Billions. And,
yes, I'm a fan.
Yep. And the psychiatrist on that show really is there to help keep the team wired and keep their head in the right place so they can be productive at work.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a TV show, but she also deals with personal stuff too, because we all have personal things we got to deal with. It affects how we work. And so I watched that show and I thought that is really a necessary role. I really think it's beneficial. Maybe other companies probably do it. So we were talking about internally, my wife and I, and we decided that we were going to try this lady we knew, and she's a really, really good writer, very good at listening, very good at talking through. She's not a psychiatrist, but she's very, very good at dynamics coaching.
Okay.
And so I brought her in. She has office hours twice a week here, 4 hours on Tuesdays, 4 hours on Thursdays, and anybody in the company can go talk to her about whatever. And so she's here and then go talk to her about whatever. And she's been here about a year and a half now. And when she was first here, she was loaded up loaded up with clients, I guess you would say.
Okay.
Now we're looking at maybe cutting her time back because she's not utilized as much. So it's helped deal with a lot of the dynamics issues that ordinarily wouldn't be dealt with, that would in the past often turn into negative distractionary behavior and things going on in the company.
Yeah.
We still have some of that. I mean, it's human nature, but for the most part, it's a very positive outcome and very worthwhile thing to have her.
Is it fair to say that dynamics coaches, it's about kind of internally, what are the battles we're all fighting professionally and personally, but also teamwork and how we're kind of collaborating together? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure we hit on, I had a clear line, obviously, linking Nick Saban to Yoda. We interjected the dynamics coach, which I love. I love watching movies or reading a book. I'm like, all right, that's an interesting idea. Can we take that from there and use it here? So I applaud your efforts there. You had talked about your admiration for the Yoda quote, do or do not. There is no try. Why?
Well, I'm sure I did it too when I was younger, but I hear, well, I'm going to try to do that. Let's say if something needs to be done. And I have the saying, I've been doing this for years. I say, Yoda, okay. That means I need to do it or not do it. Yes. So if you can't do it today and you tell someone you're going to try it, well, if you tell someone you're going to try and do it, leave it out. It's a maybe.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to try to do it by Tuesday. Well, that doesn't mean very much.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it by 5 p.m. tomorrow. Right on. Then the expectation is going to happen.
Yeah.
So when people say try, or I'm going to try to make a phone call, are you really going to try to do it, or are you going to make the phone call? Okay.
So at this point, you have said this so often to your team, you can literally just say Yoda, and everybody knows that's a trigger for, basically, it's an accountability device.
Yes.
I was curious, working with your wife, Robin, how does she help hold you accountable, or from a leadership perspective, give you some constraints or boundaries? Obviously, there's an assumption in there that you might need some accountability. Maybe that's not true either, but how do you approach that? And what advice might you have for, hypothetically, a certain podcast host who also works with his wife in our business, who I want to do a better job. I want to make sure that, happy wife, happy life. That's even more important when you're spending a lot of time in the business as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, Robin, she manages a different sister company. So we have our own sandbox, but she's been there from the beginning since Wurzel started.
Okay.
in 1998. But right now she's in our office. Our offices used to be together. We had a new person start, so she moved, and now she's not right next to me.
Together, like in the same space or adjacent?
Adjacent.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. Adjacent space. Our office is set up with walls that are about 9 feet tall with a small ceiling each. So you could holler over the wall to the next person. So for about 4 years, she was right next to me until about a month ago. So we'd say I could holler over the wall, or she'd holler at me. Yeah. She'd hear things during the day sometimes, but because we're here in the same building, even though we're operating different companies, she sees and hears, and we all talk, which is good. I like collaboration. Yeah. I like transparency, because if we don't know about a problem or someone doesn't point it out, we can't fix it. So she sees these things. I see things. What's going on over there? And we'll talk about it after. Hey, I heard you talking about this, and we really weren't very nice about that. Or she might say, you might consider this when you're doing that. And so it makes me think about it. And I one of the things we have here is that I want to work with people that'll give me feedback. I don't want to work with a yes person. If I'm the problem or I'm creating a problem, it is their duty to come down to my office and say, hey, Barry, you're doing this. So I may not like it sometimes, but it's almost always good information, and I will listen. And it definitely has changed me in a lot of ways because it's good feedback. Robin does the same thing. It's all professional, because we do a pretty good job, or we do a real good job. There's our home life, not work, and there's our work life. And even though we're married, we talk about work a lot, and it's in a lot of our conversations, but we do a good job of separating it. So when she tells me something she doesn't think I'm doing well, I don't take it personal, and I don't let it affect my personal life. So I welcome the feedback, and it's done a very good job of making me a better leader, better manager, better person. Better. That's another conversation. I'm a whole lot better person because of her feedback. But so it's been good.
My wife will be nodding, but like, I need to work on this, because I've just found it's hard where you're juggling and we're growing, of trying to really set some clear boundaries on what we do and don't talk about. Because all it takes is one person says, "Oh, hey," and we just mentioned a comment about work, and then my gears start going, and I'm a work in progress. I need to do a better job of just being like, when you say that, I don't let that sort of feedback affect me. I don't think I'm handling that effectively, but I'm working on it. I want to be mindful of the time you've allocated here, and I appreciate you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Let me ask you about maybe any books throughout your career that have really changed the way you think or really influenced your leadership style. Any books come to mind there, Barry?
Well, I've read a number of them. I like history and self-help books. So I'm going to pick, I wrote a number of them down here. I like the Monday Morning Leadership book. I didn't bring it in with me. It's a real thin book. It's basically a story about this person has a mentor that he goes and sees once a week for, I think, 8 weeks on a Monday, and that person helps coach him. Helps change his life to following some simple and basic best practices, processes, and he learns, and it helps his life. So I really don't know if it's true. I think it's fictional, but the lessons are real.
Okay.
So that was a good book. Read that a long time ago.
It's called the Monday Morning Leadership book?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. I can show it to you, or if I've got an extra copy, I'll give it to you. Because I do hand out books to folks, and I've handed that book out to just about everybody here, I'm sure. Okay. Because I do that a lot. Yeah. And then the 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever read that?
It's classic. It's so visual, and it's so accurate.
It is. Yes. And I guess the third one I'll talk about, I read a book on innovation here about a year ago. Shoot, I can't think. I've got the book. I can show it to you, but it's about innovation. And it's a good time in our life. And well, I think we always need to be innovative. No time is not the right time, but I read that about 9 months ago, and it's really very, very good. Helps open your mind to the possibilities. And so made me start thinking about artificial intelligence. How can we use that to help our construction business? And the construction business traditionally is slow to change and be innovative. We have technology, GPS to help us do dirt work, for example, and we've got lasers to help measure distances and all that kind of stuff. But how can AI help us? And there's very little in our industry about that. So it's helped get me thinking, helps me step more out of the box and think about it. So it's a book on innovation.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am wrapping up, which I would recommend to a friend. I'm going to forget the title, but it's about the history of Bell Labs, which starting in like 1912 and, literally up through the 70s, essentially kind of once the transistor and integrated circuit was developed and the microprocessor, it was just a machine that just would innovation upon innovation upon innovation that really changed world wars and Department of Defense and all this stuff. But it's how they set up a team to do that over, 50, 60 years. And then obviously then it stopped 50 years ago. They stopped being the leader in that. So it's just really instructive, but awesome. Well, Barry, I appreciate your time. I really enjoyed our pre-call. You brought up so many different things that kind of really helped us because we're really in this phase of trying to, as we scale, improve our processes, increase the clarity about knowing your role and doing your job. And just, I think you breaking down org chart, job description, coaching and review. We have those elements, but as you lay them out, you can see how they're really clearly stacked. So thank you. I've learned a lot from this, and I think our audience is going to get a lot from your insights. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right then, friend, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Barry Wurzel. And if you did, please leave us a quick review. Those mean more to us than you know, whether it's Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or whatever you are using to listen to this episode. Again, giving us a quick rating there means more to us than you know. Thank you. Also, it's our goal here to make this the best podcast you listen to. So if you have ideas for improvement or suggestions on topics or guests, do not hesitate to email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. Now, we are going to be sharing more insights that didn't make it into this episode through our bi-monthly, that is twice every month, newsletter called the Construction Leadership Newsletter. Now, I love writing and I love sharing these insights along with other ideas I've picked up in my own journey and kind of linking them to other conversations I've had with leaders in our industry. And we share those every other week, twice a month in our newsletter. I try to keep them short and I try to keep them insightful. This is what I love to do, and I bust my tail to make sure it is worth your time and attention. So if you're interested, go to bradleyhartmanandco.com. You can scroll down to the bottom on any single page, and you can subscribe. And if in the event you feel that I did not live up to my bargain, despite my best efforts for your time and attention with the Construction Leadership Newsletter, you can unsubscribe with one click. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to make damn sure I'm delivering on what I promised, to deliver value first and make it worth your time and attention. So I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, our very own, The Simple Sales Pipeline. If we're heading into a recession or we're in a recession, whatever your thoughts are on it, regardless of market conditions, you got to make sure with accuracy and consistency and discipline, your sales reps, you are forecasting well. And that is what we did after years of working with GCs and residential builders and associations and dealers and distributors and manufacturers. We needed a tool, and we built this tool, the Simple Sales Pipeline, to make it easier. Our promise is 30 minutes or less when you start up to take any sales rep and organize and value their pipeline from the jump. That is it. It's called the Simple Sales Pipeline. Check it out. See if it's a fit for you. If you have any questions, again, you can email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. All right, I'm done. We're shutting it down. You, my friend, you're owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.